Just a heads up, today's episode contains distressing themes, including discussions of child sexual abuse. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Lucy Tassell.
I'm Emma Gillespie.
The federal government has rejected the visa of a Dutch beach volleyball player due to a conviction of child rape. Steven van der Velde had sought to enter Australia for the World Beach Volleyball Championships in Adelaide being held in November. In today's episode, we explain the context behind the government's decision, including van der Velde's crime, his sentencing, and his continued athletic career.
Lucy, this story has been bubbling away for a few weeks now. There was a change.org petition that emerged in the last few weeks, essentially seeking to block this beach volleyballer, Steven van der Velde, from entering Australia. So can you take me back to the start? Who is this guy and what do we need to know about him?
So Steven van der Velde is a beach volleyball player from the Netherlands. He's represented his country at the highest level. He's currently 31 years old and most importantly, he is a child sex offender. Back in 2014, he was 19 at the time, so an adult. He repeatedly messaged a British 12-year-old girl on Facebook. They had kind of met on Facebook. And he then flew to England where he raped her. So his defense team later argued that the girl had consented, but given she was a 12-year-old child at the time, she could not actually give consent.
So Lucy, I'm assuming this obviously went to court based on the fact, you've mentioned defense team, a legal team. How did authorities get involved in the first place?
Yeah, so van der Velde told the girl to take the morning after pill, and given her age, when she went to a local clinic, staff alerted authorities. He was already on his way back to the Netherlands at that time. So he flew in one day. The rape occurred, he went back home straight away. In February 2016, he pleaded guilty to 3 counts of child rape. He was sentenced to 4 years in jail in March of that year, 2016.
Wow, that is extremely disturbing but fascinating that authorities really only learnt about this because that young girl went to a clinic seeking the morning after pill.
Yes. So then at the time, the judge said, quote, "She was a child aged 12. You were fully aware of that fact. You were a potential Olympian. You had the possibility of a stellar future representing the Netherlands," referring there to the then upcoming 2016 Summer Olympics.
So Lucy, there were the 2016 Summer Olympics. I'm assuming van der Velde missed those because he was sentenced to imprisonment following that child rape incident.
Yeah.
But we're obviously talking about him today, nearly 10 years later. So he has served his time and made a return to professional sport.
Yeah.
How did that unfold?
A year into his 4-year sentence, van der Velde was allowed to return to the Netherlands to serve the rest of his time.
Okay, so he went to a UK prison because that's where the crime occurred.
Yeah. So he had been extradited to the UK to face charges. He pleads guilty. He serves a year of jail time. Under a treaty between the two countries, he was then returned to the Netherlands to finish out the sentence.
Right.
But something I didn't know about until researching this story is how different the laws governing child sexual abuse were in the Netherlands at the time specifically. They have since been updated in some respects. So van der Velde's actions were then considered less serious under Dutch law as they would have been under British law.
Right.
They were classified as basically indecent assault. Some of the other sources I was looking at said fornication, which is kind of an archaic word. I think that might have just been a translation thing, but the general gist that I got is that this was something that was considered rape under British law, indecent assault under Dutch law.
Okay.
And that meant that soon after he returned to the Netherlands to serve out his time, his sentence was reconsidered essentially under Dutch law, because if he was serving time there, then he was under their law. That meant that about a month after returning to the Netherlands, he was freed from jail and his professional sporting career continued. In fact, he was named to the Dutch beach volleyball team for the 2024 Paris Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the reaction like to that from within the sporting world?
Hello, my name's Sam. I'm the co-founder of TDA, and I'm just popping in to interrupt this video to ask if you could do one thing for me, and that is press subscribe on this YouTube channel. It's the best way to show us that you love what we do and that you're here for our future. And now, back to the deep dive.
Within the sporting world, it was a mixed reaction. People booed him at his events at the games, and he stayed outside of the athletes' village. And at the time, the head of Australia's Olympic team, Anna Meares, said words to the effect of, if that had happened here, you wouldn't have been allowed to compete. But obviously, the Netherlands Volleyball Association had a different perspective. Ahead of the games kicking off, they said, quote, "After his release, Van der Velde sought and received professional counselling. He has demonstrated to those around him privately and professionally self-insight and reflection." They also said, quote, "In 2016, Van der Velde was convicted in England of having sex with an underage girl, which is rape under English law and fornication under Dutch law." So you can really see there are these two different standards that are being applied to the same crime depending on the country. In the end, he did compete, and the men's beach volleyball team came 9th.
So all of that was last year. We're talking about the July Paris Olympics.
Yeah.
It's now more than a year later, and his presence at a sporting event has caused disruption and dispute again. This is a professional athlete who is a convicted child sex offender.
Yeah.
What has happened in the last few weeks? Why is he back in the headlines?
Van der Velde was selected to represent the Netherlands at the World Championships of Beach Volleyball that are taking place in Adelaide next month. And he's got a partner in this because it's a paired sport, Alexander Brewer. A petition was then started by activist group What Were You Wearing Australia to block him from entering the country on the grounds that he has this child sexual abuse offence. As that petition picked up steam, South Australian Attorney General Kaya Ma wrote to the federal government asking it to cancel Van der Velde's visa. He said, quote, "This individual's offending is utterly abhorrent, and we do not believe that foreign sex offenders should be granted entry to this country." We've discussed on this podcast before when we were talking about Candace Owens.
Yes.
The federal government can refuse visas. Minister Tony Burke, the Home Affairs Minister, has a few different grounds to refuse someone entry to the country.
Absolutely. That role is set up basically to give the Home Affairs Minister a range of powers to decide when or if someone should not be allowed into the country.
Yeah. So one of those reasons is if they believe allowing someone to enter Australia would not be in the best interests of Australian children. And the minister can flag a character concern, which can include, I'm quoting directly from the Act here, "A court in Australia or a foreign country has convicted the person of one or more sexually based offences involving a child." So obviously Van der Velde has 3 charges of child rape in the UK. That would be the grounds, and that is why we believe his visa has been rejected.
Okay, so his convictions immediately meet those qualifications for a visa cancellation.
Yeah.
What has the reaction been like? Because obviously, you know, he still competes as a professional athlete in some countries and obviously in his home country, but there is this international event in Adelaide that he is now excluded from.
Yeah.
What's the reaction been like?
The Dutch Volleyball Association confirmed the decision. It said it, quote, "regrets the outcome but accepts it." Van der Velde also said he understood why this had happened. He said his criminal conviction made approval, quote, "a problem." The Netherlands have withdrawn from the event as his teammate can't compete without him. It's a paired sport. And Volleyball Australia acknowledged the ruling, saying it was awaiting a decision from the International Beach Volleyball Association on the possibility of a, quote, replacement team, I think, to make up the numbers in the brackets.
A very disturbing but fascinating story. Thank you so much for taking us through that one today, Lucy.
Thanks, Emma.
And if today's episode has raised any concerns for you, help is available through 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737-732. Or during business hours on weekdays, you can also contact the Bravehearts hotline for adult survivors of child sexual abuse. They're available on 1-800-272-831. We will, of course, put those numbers in the episode description. That's it for today's deep dive, but we will be back this afternoon with your evening headlines. Until then, have a good day.